Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. I'm here with our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, kinesiology, acupuncture, functional nutrition and supplementation, and lab testing, all out of his clinic, Balance Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida, as well as virtually all around the world. So he's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a cutting edge health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. He's worked with celebrities and athletes all around the world. And tonight is here to answer your questions. So if you do have any, please feel free to put them in the chat, we're live on Facebook, so feel free to put them in the comments. And while you're doing that, we're going to start with your clinical insight, like you mentioned.
Yeah. So of course, I get the opportunity to practice, and I'm kind of like, I like to think of it, I'm in the trenches. So I always get a good feel of, what's going on in the health world and where are people at physically, mentally, spiritually, and you name it. So, and if you want, I could even update people on the Omicron as well. But besides that, one of the most fascinating things today, especially my first half of my day, was several of the people that came in were talking about this. So they're on my cleanse, right? Or I shouldn't say my cleanse, it's the cleanse that we do. And, you got to dive in. Like although I consider it probably the easiest cleanse you'll ever do, because we have it mapped out and there's strategy and everything and good tribe around it, yet it's still hard work. Like you have to be committed to make it happen. And when those things happen, Karen, it's oftentimes I'll hear people say, oh, it went really good. But then on day 7, I got this phone call from my mom and blank happened and I had to go travel, or someone passed away, or I got sick. Everything happens every year. And oftentimes those are when people kind of throw the towel in. This year, man, way different. So I have countless of people who in the middle of cleanse got COVID and they're like, doesn't matter. I'm still doing it. And so that fortitude is really my clinical insight. And then this young girl was in here in this morning, one of my first peeps that I saw, it was just refreshing. And she said, man, I'm glad I heard your guys, we went live last night in the private Facebook group for the cleanse. And we talked, and one of the people that was sharing there last night was talking about how they've done this cleanse before, but this has been the absolute hardest one for them. And that was interesting, and I'm so glad that people shared, and it reminds me of a conversation I want to have tonight about sharing each other's wins and losses. Because that individual, Karen, impacted so many today. They said, I needed to hear that it was really, really hard. And they were doing it anyways. And that's where my first several people today that I saw in clinic said the exact same thing. And the one person, listen, if there was reason for excuses or to throw the towel in, like, I get it. So her spouse went out of town, is under a super stressful situation on the West Coast with business and everything. So she's home taking care of everything that the homestead is. And usually, if it's a 2-person crew, when one person goes away, it's hard. Like it's a lot of extra work. And then not feeling so good. And then someone in her family got sick. And still the whole time just stayed the course with her, her cleanse. And what's interesting,
amazing, because that makes it harder.
It is, because most of us, whether we've admitted it or not, I'm all in. Like I am a stress eater. When we're under stress, we want that dopamine fix. We want that subtle little, just make me feel better here for a moment. And we have been conditioned, and we've practiced quite well through the course of our lives, how the moment we don't feel good, eat a little food to change how we feel. Nobody likes to sit in that discomfort, even though it's super healthy. It's magical when it comes to the spiritual bliss. It is one of the things that we as humans have to go through if we're on our quest to become superhuman. So that fortitude that I think people shared with me this morning on several occasions really, really, really just emphasized the fact that my clinical insight was that, and I don't even know how to interpret other than there's some tough people out there. When you're focused on what you want, and you do not allow excuses get in. You know what my response is all the time when I hear that? I say, you know what, Karen, the good news is that you no longer ever have an excuse, because if you ever needed one, it was right there. and you just overcame that. So for anyone
Yeah,
out there listening to this, listen, I get it. Sometimes things are hard and sometimes things do not go our way, but we cannot wait for them to go our way. It's never going to really align that way. We may go through stretches, no doubt, like where things are sliding and just kind of flowing pretty easy, but we're going to hit bumps, and that's life. That's not a pessimistic approach toward life or an attitude, but that is life. And the longer I think we're on the face of this earth, we realize that we hit bumps. You know, we're going to hit a tunnel every now and then. We're going to hit, you know, these moments in time, and practicing having fortitude, practicing moving through it, and then seeing whatever it takes to get to the other side. That's what we should be looking for. That quest of like, hey, it might be tough and I got this.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it was good that everybody does support each other in the cleanse too. You know, the more you can reach out if it is tough, rather than make an excuse and just give up, you know, have people that you can reach out to, have your tribe there to support you.
Yeah, I think that holds true in everyday life, not just even in the cleanse group, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
100%.
like,
yeah,
you know,
we all need people to help support us through sometimes, right?
and a lot of the times those moments are like these love-hate relationship moments where one of the things I really appreciate about my wife is that she doesn't let me slide on my stuff. Like, meaning that if I'm just kind of getting like into stinking thinking mode or whatever, it never supported. It's never, oh, you're right, this is a bad time. You're right. This is like, you got too much on your plate. You know,
he holds you accountable.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what?
I love that.
One of the things I love the most is when someone knows you well enough to know what fires you up. And I love when someone lets me know that, listen, if it's not hard, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Like that. And it kind of inspires me, saying like, if it was easy, everyone would do it, but you're not like, that's not what you want. You don't want, you know, like whether we're looking to have impact or change our personal health, whatever it may be, oftentimes the very thing that we want, it's going to take a little elbow grease. It's going to take, you know, we're going to have to put some effort into it.
Yeah, for sure. I love that, because it is, I mean, often things that are worth it are hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think about all the things, my most pleasurable things that I have or that I've achieved in my life. I think every one of them I've tried to quit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I like,
yeah,
literally. And I think most people listening to this would probably,
or at least have days where you wanted to quit, right? I mean, same, like and those days, I mean, I kind of think those days are okay. Like there are going to be some days where you want to, right?
Agreed, 100%. And that is where either practice of being in those situations prior, of being in a situation where you are being tested emotionally, where you're being tested physically, you know. And again, I think one of the reasons that this upcoming year is going to be an awesome year is because I think a lot of people have somehow come to the realization that they got to get stronger.
Yeah. Physical tests are good for other tests as well. You know, like when you do, like, even if it's, I don't know. I mean, if you wanted to run a marathon, but you run a 5K or you do some sort of physical challenge that was kind of hard for you, or your 100 push-ups or something, I think it does make other things, it changes your like perception of what's possible in other areas of your life as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's nothing more like courage. And it was one of my favorite sayings. And I went live this morning. And I talked about this very statement that courage is contagious.
Yeah,
it really, really is. And that kind of comes off of the eve of yesterday was Martin Luther King Day. And what was the movement? It was courage. That defines it as well as anything. It was courage. And although there were millions of people having his thoughts, it was the courage to step out. And when he finally did step up, it encouraged others to, that's where it gets contagious. And that, I think that's where like going to like a gym and working out with other people, where there's that elevated benefit. That's where like, you know, deciding to, you know, create something or do something involving others, or doing a cleanse. And going in a situation where you know that there's a possibility for failure here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you're surrounded by like-minded people, by people that care and love for you, that want to see you succeed.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very important thing right there, that want to see you succeed. When we surround ourselves with that and we feel as though we can truly celebrate with those people, that is where, that's where we typically find a little bit more success, because we're willing to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, totally. And you might find, if some of those people aren't around you at the moment, though, the more you can do some of these hard things, you inspire other people to kind of be drawn to you, like kind of what you're talking, you speak what you feel or what you're into or what you're doing, or just show by example. And like-minded people tend to start to be a bit more drawn to you.
Yeah. And then there's the other side of that. And what we've seen over the last couple of years through leadership, at least here in our country, they didn't use courage, they used fear. And fear is like the polar opposite of that. So we can fear people into taking action or lack of action, if you want to call it. Yet it never feels good. It's never satisfying to, kind of comply, to sit back, do nothing, and let others kind of do all the action for us.
Well, it might feel easier, but it doesn't feel better.
Yeah. And easier is almost dangerous. Literally, it's almost dangerous. And I think there's a lot of talk about making things easier, to encourage it, to don't take risk, to let's make it easier. Don't work so hard. I don't know if work so hard, but you shouldn't have to do hard things. If it's hard on you emotionally, if it's hard on you physically, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Maybe it's not a good fit for you. Where the truth is that real good things are probably going to be very difficult. And I don't know that it gets any easier as we get any older.
Okay, no hope for us as we get older.
Yeah. I'll say it every day.
You're like, don't worry, it's not going to get any easier for you. Keep going.
But what does get easier, and this is why I'm so optimistic about this upcoming year, is that when we practice getting tougher, and I don't care what that toughness is. My wife and I are joking right now because it's really cold here. And the other day,
so you saying it's cold is like me saying it's cold, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were laughing the other day. We're like, we're practicing natural hormesis, it's intentionally having stress to make our bodies stronger as we're walking outside with our hats and our 4 layers of jackets. And,
those of you on live who are like up in the north and actually in the cold, feel free to comment right now.
Yeah. So we were doing hard stuff. We're going outside during the cold yesterday. Yeah. So,
I love that. But I think the more you practice is true. That's kind of almost like what I mean with I just used running as an example, but like your perception of what's hard, let's say even within running changes, like I used to think a half marathon was hard. And then when I did one, I don't know, your whole perception of, or like a 10K was hard before. And then when you do a half marathon, a 10K seems like, I could pick up and I haven't trained, but I'm sure I could do that tomorrow because I did a half marathon. So your perception of what actually is hard keeps changing. And I think that's the same with other areas of your life. As you keep doing hard things, your perception of what is you're able to do more things because you were able to conquer that last time. You've got this new perception of what is hard or what you can do.
Yeah. Well, think about, let's make it relative to the things we talk about here every week, health, options and health habits. In the beginning, man, it was pretty hard to give up gluten. Yeah. And now, no big deal. Right. Yeah. For many people that are out there in the beginning. And so listen, if you haven't given it up yet, you think it's hard because it's everywhere. For right now, because you haven't practiced it, it is, but it will become easy for you to do that, to drink more water in the morning, to go to bed at a reasonable time and get up and get 8 hours of sleep in the beginning. That's so hard because I don't have enough time. And then, or to find time to exercise. And once you start doing it, once you give evidence one time, there's the courage to get up and be willing to, oh my goodness, this does work. Or one of my favorite ones, Karen, that people overcome, because I work so much, I use so much supplementation and herbs in my nutritional practice. When people say, I can't take that many pills, and they'll be talking about 5, right? And then next thing you know, 2 years later, they're shoveling back 30.
Taking 15.
They're taking 5, in a handful at a time. Yeah. And it's all relative to how we practice. And I think, in the big scope of things, that most of the time we have excuses, and depending on who we share them with will determine whether or not we'll ever use that excuse again.
Yeah. I love that. You've got someone to hold you accountable to that. I think it is, and if it's not somebody who's in your family, you can seek that out as well. Seek out groups or people. As you said, if you're in a gym, maybe there's somebody else in the gym that can hold you accountable to going. I know for me, especially things like that, accountability helps so much. I used to be really consistent with an early morning yoga class I used to go to because I had a friend that came with me. And once you stopped, I moved countries and came back. And once I didn't have that person, wow, in theory, obviously I need to just get myself there, but having that accountability or that person to like push you through helps so much.
Yeah. So that was a big part of my like clinical insight today. It's just really the fortitude and, the genuine like strength that people are having, and, and just the gains and the results that they're getting. And yes, there's a lot of people that were talking about their wins when in terms of, like weight loss and stuff like that. But this year's theme, we do a cleanse. No doubt people love to lose weight. But it's almost been a little weird for me to hear people talk so much about all the other wins, like the mental clarity and the vitality and the fact that they did it during these hard times. So that's my clinical insight this week, of just literally that when we're crystal clear on what it is that we want, and we decide in this moment that we're not going to let a lot of the excuses come in, that we just let it go.
Yeah. Love it. No, I think it's awesome. Very cool. All right. Should we get into some of these questions?
Yeah, let's dig in.
Okay. Dr. Bart, any suggestions how to get off prescription allergy medication and fix my asthma? Also, do you have a good routine to prevent allergy symptoms to dander and dust?
Okay. So allergies, asthma, dust and dander. Okay. So there's a lot there, and I'll walk through this. So, and this is for anyone listening tonight. If you have someone that you're in life, or you personally has allergies or asthma, listen close to make sure they get a recording of this. This is close to my heart because I grew up with these allergies and asthma, to the point where I would have asthma attacks and sometimes pass out, and I would wake up in a hospital. So, to the point where it was life-threatening, and people do, in some situations, people actually pass away from asthma. So there's a lot here. So I want to kind of dig into that. Typically, how does it start? How does someone start off with allergies and asthma? Unfortunately, Karen, it's typically early use of antibiotics. That's probably its most common route.
Okay.
So, and that was me.
That's in children, right?
Children, correct. Yeah. A lot of times children, and there's adult onset asthma and stuff like that. And I'll get to that in just a moment. So let's break it down into really the first category of the immune system. We got to boost up the immune system. And so there's definitely some lifestyle things that will be very significant, meaning that you want to decrease the amount of inflammation in the body. So critically important. The two most significant things are going to be dairy and gluten in terms of dietary stuff. There's a reason I talk about these every single week, because if you're always doing something that's pro-inflammatory, even if you don't notice it, if it's pro-inflammatory, you will be vulnerable for something. Because if there's inflammation in the body, it makes it very difficult for your white blood cells to be able to do what they need to do. And then there's also this vulnerability for bacteria to build up. And if bacteria builds up, then we get bacterial infections, and then we go on antibiotics. And then there's just this snowball, this very, very just rotten route that we take, but, in the normal paradigm of medicine, et cetera. So that's number one. We want to when it comes to the dietary changes, we're getting rid of anything that produces inflammation. And you got to do a little, and this is an ongoing thing. It's increased water. So we're going to create a good filtering system, decrease gluten, decrease dairy. Now I'll talk about the supplements in just a moment, because there's different ones for the immune system, and then there's different ones for the lungs. So what typically happens is early on, there may be an allergy to something. And an allergy and asthma isn't always connected, but here's how the asthma part of it typically happens. You have an an allergy to something, a dog. That was my issue when I was young, right? So I want to say, if you're out there with asthma and allergies, you can overcome these. Okay.
You used to be allergic to dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Karen, I'll tell you, I'll share a funny story with you. And I share this with my staff, and I don't know if they think I'm just nuts or whatever, but so I have a love of animals, right? And it's always been, and I don't care if it's a reptile, a dog, a cat, whatever. I just love animals. And I think I get that from my dad mostly. And anyway, so we'd go over my relative's house during the like holiday seasons and everything. And I was allergic to animals, and I would start to breathe. And if anyone has ever had asthma or have had a hard time breathing, you know, it's the most terrifying thing in the world. I have had every injury to my body. None of them hold a candle to the inability to breathe, because it's terrifying. It literally is terrifying. It's like self-suffocation. So I'd rather be punched in the head 20 times than visit like a true asthma.
But yeah,
preferably neither. But nonetheless, so when I would go over my relative's house, and sometimes my own, I'd get all the animals, and they would basically tell me, this is what kids do, right? When they say, you can't be around the animals, leave them alone. Don't, like, stop petting them. You're going to have asthma. You're going to have allergies. And I'd be all puffy, and I'd get little welts on my face and on my skin, these little like hives and everything. But I love the animals so much, and the family would be off doing what they're doing. And I would take all the animals and bring them all into one room and bring them onto a bed, put them all under a sheet, and I would be underneath there with them. And then one time I literally went from there, and then I woke up in the hospital, because I literally remember being underneath the sheet, unable to breathe. And anyone who's listening understands when you have asthma, you know how literally the word is terrifying, how terrifying it feels. So during that time, I did what any mother would do. That I went to the doctors, I did allergy shots, I had an inhaler, and I wouldn't leave my home without my inhaler for probably a solid decade.
Wow.
Like a full, using a steroid inhaler, prescription inhaler for my lungs. So I get that process. And over time, I learned I needed to build my immune system. I had to go back and rehabilitate my lungs as well, and then make sure the vitamin nutrients that needed, the right proper ones were in my body regularly. So one of them, I'm gonna get right out. Well, I'll talk about the supplements in a moment. So the lungs, here's how it happens with the lungs. We get our nasal sinuses get filled up. And as a result of it, we become mouth breathers. We breathe in, we stop breathing through the nose at all. We learn, and we become mouth breathers. And it's a little more vulnerable for the lungs. The nose and everything that goes in, like in and out of the nose and nose hair, it's also part of the immune system protecting our lung field. So mouth breathing is just like a little bit of more of an open gate, and it can break down and create a little bit more of an issue for the lungs. And years and years of doing that, and that's how you start to create inflammation in the lungs. You literally start to create more of like a fibrotic tissue, maybe even a little scar tissue in the lungs. And that's part of what starts the asthma, the inability for the lungs to flex and contract, and you can't get your air out. That's the interesting thing. Like, you can get it in, but you can't get it out. And so you literally, it's almost like you're starving of not having good oxygen in the air. So that's kind of the fundamentals of the, like that part of it. So we got to build the immune system.
Become a mouth breather. How do you go? Can you go back to being a nose breather?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to train. And that's something I didn't train until I got introduced to yoga.
Okay.
And I really started to, my wife would probably better describe this better, but you have these, like, you close one nostril and you breathe through, and it goes to one side of your brain, and then you close the other and goes to the other side, and then you do it fast. And then you kind of hold your fingers in certain ways, and you alternate them back and forth, and you retrain your brain how to breathe through your nose. And that was fascinating to me. I literally felt like my body was filling up with oxygen, something that I hadn't experienced for the bulk of my life. To really be, like, truly get oxygen into my body, I thought the only way was taking, making my mouth wider and wider and take a big deep breath in through my mouth. And then I learned how to do abdominal breathing, which is important as well. And I think I've talked about it in the show, but maybe like a year ago, where you take a breath in through your nose and you fill your abdomen first. You drop your diaphragm. I'm going to move the mic here for a second. Visually, if you guys can see this, you drop your diaphragm down. Instead of, when people take deep breaths, they go and they pull it up. You're looking to try to drop the diaphragm down so you can get more air into the body. So breathing techniques, absolutely positively. So immune system and then lung rehab. So supplements, I'm going to come out with maybe one of the first and most important ones. And there's some simple therapies and stuff that goes here. In all of this, Karen, inevitably, I think clinically, every case I've ever seen with asthma also is associated or correlated with anxiety. And a little bit atypical to the normal anxiety that I see, what I would call
Even with children.
No, with adults as well. It becomes part of it because the inability to breathe is so terrifying. And I probably should stop saying that, but it's really that. It's literally that inability to breathe is what make grown men tap out when they're doing jujitsu. It's the inability to breathe that makes you say, I quit, you win. So it's real. So that inability to breathe, we take a lot of action. So when you feel the sensation coming up, the allergies have started to kind of create the hives, the histamine response. It's uh-oh mode. It is, where's my inhaler? And this is real for everyone out there that has had an inhaler before. They know what I'm talking about. And if your inhaler's low, now you're even more nervous. Or if by chance it's running out, like you really get nervous about these things. So with that being said, how do we unwind all this cascade? So we're dealing with the immune system, the lungs, and the anxiousness. So we got to deal with all three. The anxiousness, so the ability to learn how to breathe and become a nose breather once again. And I still have to work on it. I most of my early, developing years were through my mouth. So I have to continuously learn. When I focus on it, I can do it fantastic. If I'm not focusing.
What about when you sleep?
When I practice, I become a better nose breather. And there are literally when I'm in my yoga practice and I'm practicing all those nostril things, literally you wake up a part of your brain and understand, right? We can breathe through our nose. For the most part, I'm a mouth breather. So this is because I've trained, like I've unconsciously trained my body that way. So it's like a work in progress there. So let's talk about the different supplements and nutrients that we can use to sustain and help change this. And there's a couple here. And this is where you got to go all in. Just trying it probably is, if you want to make a sustainable change, instead of doing the change, my change took probably over a decade. Like it took me a good 10, 12 years because I didn't have a really good strategy like I'm going to share right now. So number one, the two things that are very, very significant, very helpful, and very, very easy. One, get a ton of sunlight.
Okay.
A ton of sunlight. Yes. Part of the asthma is a sympathetic dominant space. You're in fight or flight. Your body gets stuck in a breathing pattern. Sunlight will always calm it down. Heat calms things down. I'm not talking about overheating, but I'm just talking about the nice sun because it helps produce vitamin D. Vitamin D is in almost, now I'm going to say all asthma cases have low vitamin D.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's one that's kind of always just missed. And it's also one of the reasons I think in the back of my mind that I always have good vitamin D levels. Like, I don't know, 8 years ago when I started doing my labs and I found out I had low, I was like, nope, that's changing. So vitamin D levels, as much as about 20,000 IUs per day, maybe even higher, whatever it takes to get your vitamin D up into that, functionally healthy level, which would be about 70 millimoles. And again, that's a very easy test. You can do it at home. It's a $50, $70 test, something like that. So if you don't know and you have asthma, take that test. So it'll solidify your need for vitamin D. So getting sun, vitamin D.
And they can get that test from Balance, right?
Absolutely. We'll mail it to you. You can come by, pick it up. We usually have some right there on our countertop.
Cool.
Next, we'll talk about the immune system. So I'll use two things primarily here, and you could use a lot more, but two primary things. One is called Antronex. Antronex works as if it's an antihistamine. It's not an antihistamine, but it's the way that it works. Its mechanisms will reduce the amount of overall histamine in the body. Antronex is a beef liver extract that helps drain excess. It's a drainage product. So your liver will have more capacity, meaning it won't have to produce as much histamine. And this is important. because as the histamine fills up, it creates the inflammation in the lung field and in the sinus glands. And that's when we get into trouble. So again, anything that helps reduce histamine in the body, fantastic. Antronex is one of the best things for that. And then
so can you use that when you're having like an allergy attack?
I'm going to encourage it for the people out there with asthma to use a low dose daily, like 2 in the morning, 2 at night. If you're in an allergy, like you're in a seasonal allergy, or you went to someone's house or something triggered you, perfume triggered you, or something like that triggered you, now you're having like a response. And those out there who have allergies and asthma, they know what I'm talking about. Then you would double down, do about 4 at night, right before you go to bed, and 4 first thing in the morning. And that's all in the nature of helping the liver purge. Now I'm saying that I would also throw in some celery juice first thing in the morning. Same thing. Okay. We're going to help the liver purge so that it has the capacity to handle things. So those 2 things would be very simple things. And we know all the other things are really good as well. Vitamin C, D, and zinc are still awesome for it. But in terms of building the immune system for allergies, there's another product we use called Allerplex. That Allerplex is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant product. It's multiple products inside of that. That's 3 twice a day, and you stay on it steady, Freddy. You are redeveloping an immune response in your body. So again, we got the dietary changes with the gluten and the dairy. And then we're going to flip over to the lungs. If you've had chronic asthma, there's a good chance that your lungs are getting a little stiff, and we have to help them out. So there's a very specific supplement we use to help the health of the lung field, and it's called the Pneumotrophin PMG. You don't need a lot of it, but you need it steady, at least a good 90 days worth. And it'd just be 2 at night and 2 in the morning. If you're asthma, again? It's called Pneumotrophin PMG.
Pneumotrophin. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's an herbal concoction. And I won't mention all the herbs here, but it's the supplement is called Pulmoco. Pulmaco, Pulmoco. And it's a different complex of herbs that are very, very supportive in healthy lung tissue. So those, or we'll call it 5: vitamin D, Antronex, Allerplex, Pneumotrophin PMG, and Pulmoco. Now, I also, for some people, I have a liquid herbal blend. A little bit much for me to talk about here tonight in the show because there's 4 or 5 different herbs in there, very similar to the Pulmoco. It's a liquid blend. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to take, and especially in acute situations, because your body in an asthma attack, you are not a good digester. Your stomach acids are completely out of balance. And that's often part of the problem to you in asthma, that your immune system is weak because you don't have strong enough stomach acids. So that's part of it. All right. So now let's address the other 2 things, which is the adrenals.
Just quickly, if they do want to get those supplements, can get in touch with Balance and we can ship them out to you anywhere?
Absolutely. They just call in, email in, and then, they can reference, Dr. Bart spoke of, asthma and allergies, and usually I put that protocol together. We can send it out for you. Easy breezy.
Awesome. Okay.
And then the others I would say aren't as important, but can't be overlooked. And that is the state of the adrenal glands. The adrenals, especially if you've been on a steroid inhaler for a long time, and I consider a long time, anything over a year would be a pretty long time.
Yeah. Which is most people if they've had asthma. Yeah.
The challenge there is you make it really vulnerable for your adrenal glands, meaning that you're pumping this cortisol into your body. Essentially, it's like a cortisone is what you're kind of pumping into the steroid. And as a result of that, it over time, it's going to weaken your adrenal response to stress and make you more vulnerable for adrenal fatigue. So there's a link here, Karen, for those who have dealt with allergies and asthma and adrenal fatigue.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So addressing the adrenals, and that might be something as simple as we've talked about Drenamin. Drenamin is a kind of the broad-based supportive of the adrenal glands and also cortisol production and DHA production for the adrenals. It's almost like a multivitamin for the adrenals. So that's one consideration right there. Sugar is also consideration in the diet, sugar, gluten, dairy, of course. and then the anxiousness part of it. I don't find that anxiety causes asthma. I find that leading up to when we start to have an allergic response, we get caught in fight or flight, it triggers the anxiousness that triggers more breathing issues. So having tools to handle that, so no different than we've talked many times about things that are really good for anxiety, things like ashwagandha, and having these tools very similar to this conversation we were having earlier. If you practice these things, like you have, I've used a little ashwagandha, I've used kava, I know what to expect from them. If you have them in your tool belt, when that moment happens, you can lean on those. And listen, coming off, and I'm going to tell you guys how I came off in just a moment here, how I literally got off my inhaler. Coming off things, and again, cold turkey is not always the best way unless you have to, but weaning off and having tools. Cold turkey and doing nothing is just turkey meat. Like you're being a turkey. Like don't do that. Have a strategy where you're getting stronger. You're helping your lung fields become more pliable. They can flex and expand and contract easier. And your immune system is getting beat up less by these different toxins that are coming into your body. So real quickly, I know we're spending a lot of time in this one. How did I get off mine? This is how I get off. I had to tough it out. So when I got out of college, I had no health insurance. And when I got out of college, I didn't have any money. And therefore I couldn't afford my doctor's visits to get my inhaler. Okay. So I had to go cold turkey. Simultaneously, that is also when right around the time that I injured my back and went to the chiropractor for the first time in my life. And I remember him talking about it because he saw my inhaler. I'd pull it out of my pocket, put it on the table, lie down on the adjusting table. He said, you take better care of your spine, take care, eat a little better, drink some more water in your life. There's a day that you might not need that. And he didn't say it was a guarantee. He just said it like that. And I was like, this guy's a weirdo. Anyway, and what I would find instantly when he would adjust me and take me out of sympathetic dominance, because that's what happens every time you get adjusted. One of the reasons you breathe better, one of the reasons your muscles feel more relaxed is we restabilize the central nervous system. We swing the pendulum back, most likely, especially if you get upper cervical adjustments, that's what shifts you into parasympathetic, activity, rest, digest, recover, rebuild. But if you stay wound up, that's where the neck pain comes from. So I'd get these adjustments. I would literally breathe better from just the adjustment.
Wow.
And it just started to like, oh, good. And then I didn't drink a lot of water back in the day. So he'd just be like, hey, start drinking some more water. It'll help flush out your body, get rid of some of those histamines. Wow. All right. Easy enough. And that's where it began. So I got forced into it. So I had to do it the hard way. And then that's when I finally learned about dairy. Someone said, oh, you have asthma. You definitely shouldn't drink milk. And I was the kid sitting at home, remember, I don't know, like when I'd watch TV and they say, you want to get big and strong, drink more milk.
Oh yeah, totally.
I'd be over there sucking back the gallon of milk all day long, trying to see if my muscles were growing, so, and all it was doing is, inflaming me on a regular basis. So that's a long story there, but allergies and asthma, listen, you can overcome them no matter who you are, what you've been, what road you've been down to. If you're on a medication, wean off to that point of dust and dander. The allergen is not as important. Okay. That's the environment.
How they ask like a routine for dust and dander, all these things would be, doesn't matter if it's dust, it's dander, these same supplements would, or it doesn't matter, pets, whatever it is.
Because really the route to health is always, how do we improve the system, organ, or gland? It is not about the external thing. Now, if we can avoid that in the growth of it. So like my dogs weren't the problem. Yeah. I was too weak to handle my dogs. Yeah. And clearly I got strong enough so I don't have to avoid. And I did allergy screening tests where I don't know if they still do them nowadays. They like inject these little things in if a bump came up on your arm, that means you were allergic to it. Okay. And I had these welts up and down both of them. I was allergic to everything. Wow. Like everything. Like everything that they pumped in there would just swell up, and I'd be watching and I'm like, I don't think this is good. I don't think this, and it would just like swell up, and then I'd start getting puffy in my face, and then to go to the other arm. We're like, oh, we got a couple more. And they just keep enjoying. We'd sit there and stare at it. That one would puff up, and that one would puff up. No, I was young. I was like 19 years old. I was like, what's going on here? Yeah.
Wow. It's a good conversation to have though, because I have to admit, I haven't found anything I'm allergic to yet. So never never suffered from allergies, been very, very lucky, like seasonal allergies, any of those kind of things. But whenever I do talk to people, people think it's forever and that's never going to change. I'm allergic. It's not like or I have asthma. It's not like something, it's not like I've got a headache and it's going to pass. They say it as if it's forever. So I think it's good to have the conversation that doesn't have to be forever, right? Like you're a good example, obviously, of that.
Yeah, it really, really doesn't. And I said this one's a little close to my heart because I dealt with it. And my mom provided me with everything that she could, as many doctor visits as she possibly could. No one whispered this to her though. And if someone did, she would have taken this route and she would have made it hard on me too. She would have taken, and my favorite meal of the day was cereal. And I'd have it for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And I know my mom, she would have said, what, you're done with, she literally would overnight have just been like, you're done with milk. And there would have been no almond milk. There would have been nothing back then, right? It would have just been like, you're done with milk.
Cereal with water.
Whatever, right? Like that's the way it would have been. Like that's how things rolled back then. It was like, you just like tough it out. You're tough. You don't like it, go cry, whatever. I don't know.
I love that. But yeah, I mean, people can only do with the information that they have at the time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All the time when you go to a traditional doctor, that's what they say. Hey, okay, well, there you go. You've got allergies forever. Take your inhaler, take your medication.
And that's why, so you guys are just, if you have the opportunity to, share it out, spread a little love, there's someone out there that their asthma inhibits their life more than you think.
Yeah. So can you completely reverse asthma? Like let's say you can't go scuba diving when you've got asthma, things like that.
100%. I don't even mark it on a chart. If I go to the doctor's office, they said I don't even mark it off. It's done. I do not have asthma.
Yeah. Do you scuba dive?
Yeah, I do anything. I don't care. Like there's no chance I would think of I have asthma. Can I not scuba dive? No, I'll do anything.
Yeah.
Okay. In fact, one of my favorite things I like to do is go underwater and hold my breath as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
It's I wasn't even in this intentional that I'm sharing with you now. I wasn't even this intentional this was living and learning.
Yeah.
A lot of it was learning new breathing techniques.
Yeah.
That's what gave me it was literally waking up my brain in different ways that I did not breathe that way. So learning those new techniques, I'm thinking here now, I should probably get back to practicing some of them. Yeah. So, but
because I know the ones you're talking about. I learned those and the alternate nostril breathing and stuff at yoga too. But I haven't practiced either, so it's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. All right. We got another question here. What is NAC? And do you have any suggestions for it?
All right. NAC is no doubt popular right now. So it's
what are we even talking about? So, what is NAC?
Yeah. So NAC, it's N-acetylcysteine. Really what it comes from is cysteine, and you can find that in foods, and that's part of the amino acids. So it's not necessarily considered an essential amino acid because you can get some of it from food, but your body can also make it. So ultimately, when people hear what is NAC, and I swear someone must have done someone really popular, like maybe Joe Rogan did a podcast on it or something. But NAC is real popular right now because it really helps to work as an antioxidant. So it works in help clearing out things and reducing the amount of oxidative stress in the body. And that's always a good thing. Specifically, the way that it works, Karen, is that NAC helps support the building and making of more glutathione. And glutathione is the number one antioxidant that the body has, and the body makes this. So there's a couple ways, and we've talked a little bit other different ways. There's an herb out there called milk thistle. Same thing, different mechanism on how it works, but it helps the body to make more glutathione, clears out the liver, repairs the liver, and helps the body create these antioxidants. So I want to express, though, it is important that we really think about oxidative stress and antioxidants. And when I say oxidative stress, it means this. So imagine if you take a banana and you unpeel it, and tomorrow it turns all brown, right? And you just leave it on the counter, it turns brown. That's oxidation. Yeah. That is the cells, the little, the body itself, the banana itself is breaking down, and then it creates free radicals. And those free radicals floating around the body are very damaging. So right now, I think maybe NAC is really, really popular because there's been COVID and long hauler syndrome, and how do we get rid of this junk out of our body? And no doubt it's competing. So glutathione helps us with GMOs. It helps us with the poor water quality. It helps us with the negative emotions. It helps us with everything that is toxic to the human body. Perfumes, chemicals, all of this stuff that's in the air, everything that comes into the body goes to the liver. The number one antioxidant the body has is glutathione. If we are constantly bringing in all these sources or being overwhelmed with these toxins, the body uses up a lot of glutathione. So if we can replenish it by creating a system that replenishes it, like NAC and acetylcysteine, I think that's what it is, and acetylcysteine. If we can get an abundance in that, there's an opportunity for the body then to make more glutathione. And and there's so then where do we get it? You can get it in a supplement. The way that I go around it or go about it as a practitioner is, and I probably should have mentioned this, people will be more excited about their cleanse. There's something called cysteine, and that's what the NAC part of it. And that's, you can get that from your diet, and then it brings it into your body. Your body will then help convert that into N-acetylcysteine. Yes. And the foods, some of the primary ones are things like cruciferous vegetables. That is why you hear, especially on our show, you'll hear me talk all the time about the value and the power of constantly eating cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, these guys. These are the ones that have the links, the research behind helping with cancer, helping with excess estrogen in the body, balancing out hormones, getting rid of toxins, helping with fatty liver disease. These are huge. There's another one of my favorites is Spanish black radish. Another cool thing, Karen, everyone that was just doing our cleanse or is currently doing, so if you're doing our cleanse right now, you in that SP Complete, those powders, high cruciferous vegetables and Spanish black radish. And that's what helps phase 1, 2, and 3 of that liver detox pathway. So there's a lot of ways to get it. You literally could just go to Amazon and pull up NAC. Now at that point, it to some degree, it is a synthetic supplement, and I don't think it's the worst of them because it would fall into the category of almost like an ascorbic acid. I don't think that it's going to make it hard on the body. I don't think there's anything negative about it. If you're reading the ingredients, which I know a lot of you do, it's not going to say that this came from an apple. It's not going to say that it came from broccoli. It's synthetic, so it's made in a laboratory. So essentially, that's what NAC is. It's a very, very, by itself, it's not the antioxidant necessarily, but its ability to help us produce and make more glutathione, which is the number one antioxidant of the human body. That's really what it does.
So are there people that you think should take that supplement? Like if you are going through long hauler COVID, is that, obviously everyone should be eating these cruciferous vegetables every day. I mean,
yes.
Just regardless of NAC or otherwise, there's so many other benefits. But is there anybody who maybe an additional supplement of this would be beneficial?
Yeah, I don't think it would be harmful. That's for sure. So if they came to my office, I would give them, there's a supplement called Cruciferous Complete. So I'd literally give them a supplement of that. But same thing, you could take, just like someone could go out and get like IV injections of glutathione. There's always a shortcoming when it is not taken through the natural pathways. So when you do it through the natural pathways through food, it comes with all the other things, all the synergistic things that I don't even know about. Like, then we don't know about that. The body needs all the other vitamins and minerals to process. Like, you need one of these to get one of these. You got to give up a hydrogen to get inside the cell. Then that one needs an extra, calcium. So there's so many mechanisms that take place versus just trying to take something that may be low in the body and increase it to make it high. So anytime that we can increase the amount of antioxidants in the body, I think that's a good idea. And not necessarily to reduce the amount of oxygen in the body, but to help the body facilitate the amount of free radicals that are roaming around. Now, with that being said, let's not forget the number one way to do that is don't let those suckers in. Listen, I don't care how much NAC you take. You got a crap diet. You're putting GMOs in your body every day. You got junky thoughts going on. You're holding in your emotions. And you're drinking some alcohol every night, and you're beating your body down and slowing liver function down because so much, drugs and alcohol and processed food and McDonald's are going in there. You take NAC all day long, not gonna do anything.
Yeah, so that's the same with any supplements. Really, we can't fully out supplement the bad inputs, really, can we?
But for this group listening to me tonight, having a little NAC in your life to increase the amount of antioxidants, probably a darn good thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Next question comes off our cleanse, because obviously we talk a lot about our health wins when we do our cleanse calls, but why do you think we don't celebrate our health wins more?
I would just say conditioning. You know, and it's in my role, it's something that is very obvious. It's very obvious. I'm going to give you an example, Karen. So if I meet someone on the street and random individual and say, hey, I'm a doctor, I'm trying to help people out today. Could you please tell me all of the things that are wrong with you? Tell me all the previous diagnoses that you have. And that list will be ripped off as if it's autopilot. Well, I've got a broken elbow from 1924. And then I got, this old rugby injury over here. And my doctor told me I have high blood pressure and I have a little bit of fatty liver disease. And I also have an autoimmune condition. It's arthritis. And it's definitely from my dad, from the side of my grandmother's whose dog was really loud. And that's why they got it. So all of those things happen. And we are good at doing that. Like, we just rip them off. And how do I've been in practice for 25 years. Literally, sometimes people come in with like sheets of paper and be like, doc, this is what's wrong with me. The moment I ask them, tell me what's right with you today.
I don't know what to say. They look like that.
They don't know what to say. And it's shameful. And I don't mean like it's shame on them, but we haven't been encouraged to celebrate our health, these God-given bodies that we have, to celebrate, hey, listen, I'm doing a pretty good job today.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I've exercised every day since Christmas. Yes, I have, which has been cool. Or on the cleanse, or like, listen, I hunkered down and I lost 9 pounds. Like, we are so conditioned not to celebrate. And it's unfortunate because, again, celebrations, people love them. They're fun, right? And then people like to do them, so they'll want to celebrate too. So they do very similar things, and it's literally contagious. So I'm going to encourage everyone to continue to allow yourself to celebrate. I think the answer is conditioning, and it's a condition that we can fix. So for yourself,
it's important now. Like, I mean, really, health. What else do we have right now with all that we've been going through?
Yeah, I would go as far as if we were like live and everyone was talking, I would just ask everyone, what's awesome about you today?
Yeah.
And it's so weird where some people would not answer that.
Oh, I would. Yeah, we should ask them at the next cleanse call because it'd be hard to answer. People find it hard.
And here's why, Karen, because not that we don't truly believe there's something awesome about us. I think a lot of people do think so. We have no practice. There's not a space that we're allowed to do it. Like, there's not a place where like, hey, by the way, here, I'm killing it today. Like, I'm feeling good. But the moment you feel bad, you will be like, excuse me, everyone, I got a head cold today. Can you keep it down? I got a little headache, whatever. Just like, let's keep it quiet. And, we can do that. But you walk in a room and you'd be like, oh, feeling good today. Mind's on fire. Feel creative. Just ran 10 miles. I'm good to go. Like, unsupportive. So, and I think that's part of why, again, I'm optimistic about this upcoming year. And I think people are like, yeah, I think it's okay to celebrate because I'm putting the work in. Like, it's not like, and here's the other part of it. It's not, when you celebrate, it's not about the other person losing. It's literally about.
Oh, never in any aspect of your life.
Never.
Nobody should ever take it like that either. I never understand that when people think that your win is something that you're taking away from them. It never is.
It never is. And I think people are getting that more and more. At least I think that the people that are like seeking out how to level up, seeking out how to become more superhuman, and seeking the knowledge and the information and the mindsets that it takes. So I love the idea of celebration. I love the idea, because celebration means that you risk something, usually that you put something on the line, that it was hard for you to get where you're at. And because you wouldn't really celebrate, but listen, hey, I drove all the way down to my office and I made it. Like, it wasn't hard. There's no celebration there. Like, I'm not going to celebrate that. Like, that didn't take me anything. Now, if I ran down to my office, I'd be telling everyone, I'm me personally, I'd tell people out all day, I ran here today. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also good to have people prioritize that now. I think also we didn't celebrate because health just doesn't get prioritized as much as maybe other things. Hey, I've celebrated that, I got a new promotion on my job.
Yeah.
We, put that above like, hey, we managed to get ourselves off our high blood pressure meds. But really, like promotion or off our high blood pressure meds, like, oh my God, let's get off the high blood pressure meds.
And there is no doubt about it. And I think this year coming up will be crystal clear about this, is that health is new currency.
Yeah.
That if you are healthy, it's almost like you have the level of health that others may not be able to enjoy simply because of the practices that you have. So again, that excites me about the upcoming year because it's available for everybody.
Yeah.
And all you got to we're not talking about like measuring it, person to person. We're literally talking about against yourself or relative to where you've been in the past. How do you continue to just make one step of improvement, one little change moving forward? So no doubt about it, like health is the new currency, and I think the more that we learn how to celebrate, whether it be, and I think it's okay to celebrate them all, like your health, your wealth, your relationships.
Oh yeah.
I think it'd be wonderful if people said, on a regular basis, we're celebrating that they have an awesome marriage.
Oh,
right? Don't we only hear about the divorces most of the time? Yeah. So it would be nice. And then people might say, well, no different than if they're feeling healthier and stronger, the mind's clear and they're losing weight or whatever it may be. Someone says, well, how'd you do that? If people were celebrating, marriages and celebrating, longevity.
I think, and also with marriages, we celebrate the length of marriages, hey, they were together 20 years. But I think also like if we more went into like, it's still an awesome marriage or a quality of the relationship more so than just based on time. If it's a miserable 20 years, I don't know.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because we definitely celebrate the longevity.
Time only. Yeah. Like when it comes to marriage, the only currency it seems, within our culture is time. And I think it's just think it's a mindset that would be good to have changed in the future, just because it is like, that's not the measure of a relationship, right?
No. And that's probably opened up an entire other can of like cool stuff that we could talk about.
Yeah.
Because it is such a big part of our health. I gotta mention, I know we're running late here. I gotta mention just one more insight that we had. So I had this gentleman come in, and over the years, he's really done some amazing things. Quit drinking. He used to drink every day, and he hasn't drank now for almost 2 years, which is awesome. He really banged himself up doing CrossFit, and we had a good conversation. And when he came to me and he said, man, I screwed up, blah, 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 CrossFit. I said, man, it wasn't CrossFit, brother. It was how you did CrossFit.
Yeah.
And I see him about once a year now. Okay. Like that's been our thing. And I'll see him like once a year, and we have these really profound moments. And the following year he came back and I said, man, how you doing? He said, phenomenal. Going to CrossFit 6 days a week.
Wow.
I said, really? What's going on? He's like, man, I just modify. I make it work for me. He's like, I'm 49, 52 year, whatever he is, 50 years old. I now make it work for me. And I was like, and then he said, I appreciate you telling me that wasn't the CrossFit, it was me. And now there's this other little dark cloud hanging over his head. And he said to me, you know what? I got to get rid of the cloud. And because it was affecting his physical body. There was a stressor in his life. There's this like elephant in the room that he's not addressing. And it's totally on an emotional side, a stressful, in a relationship thing is really what it is. And he knows if he does not address it, nothing moving forward will be healthy.
Yeah.
And so we were able to have that one moment of that deep conversation. And it was just a true straight talk, out of kindness and love and helping each other level up. And that is like, I get the insights and the advantage of practicing day to day to see the feel and the momentum that I believe, at least in our community, that where the mindsets are going. And that's part of what makes me optimistic. And I see people, and you know what he said? He walked out of there, and I swear I'll probably see him in a year, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I bet you he's going to go take care of that thing.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like generally all of us have started to recognize the need and the power of us getting a little bit stronger.
Yeah. Love it. No, it's so true. So true. All right, well, let's lead from there into our last question. Like, what's going to be our one action that our listeners can take to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman this week?
Get tougher.
Yeah.
Get tougher. Yeah. Really get tougher. Emotionally get tougher. Physically get tougher. Like all of it.
Don't be scared of hard things.
Yeah, don't be scared of hard things. Go do some tough shit. Yeah, that one.
Love it. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. We so appreciate you being here, and we'll see you same time, same place next week for another episode of the Health Made Simple show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Karen. And thank you everyone for being here tonight, or if you're listening, thanks again for just kind of being here, and keep doing your thing, keep sharing it out, keep spreading love. And of course, continue to take deliberate action for your mind, your body, overall wellness. That'll be awesome.